Every year at this time, we gather to remember. Each time it feels so close to home. This year somehow is different because we're remembering someone from our home.
We join together with the nation of Israel world over and remember the 24,068 fallen soldiers and the 4,216 victims of terror. Naflu Giborim, mighty people have fallen. Tonight we remember, salute and thank them. The flag will now be lowered
Yizkar, we light candles, we remember. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, the candle of God is the soul of man. To our amazing big cousin Ellie Kay. What's next? We miss you. Lo Nishkach Alexa. Okay. Your candle keeps burning. Lo tichbene v'lo lam va'ed. Yehi zichram baruch. May the memories be for a blessing. Am Yisrael Chai.
For the candle lighting, we have selected a piece of music called Eretz Tzvi, written about a hostage rescue mission in Ein Tevi in 1976. It encapsulates the grief, pride and hope we feel as we acknowledge those who sacrificed their lives for our land and our nation. Unfortunately, since Rosh Hashanah, there have been 7 fatal terror attacks. The attack in Ariel just a few days ago, Tel Aviv, Bnei Brak, Chadera, Beersheba, and Chomesh. We light a candle for each one, and through them remember the thousands of souls commemorated on Yom Hazikaron. Coming up to the front now to light these candles are Danny Jeff Klein, Tali Shabtai Lewis, Joy Cohen, Linda and Tony Bloom, Martin Isaacs and Hannah Klein. The first fatal attack in the Jewish year, 5782, was Ellie Kay in Jerusalem. Ellie's Bobby, Rebbitz and Lindy will light the 7th candle. ask you all to stand for a minute's silence.
A minute silence.
Semmenuchen nach einer Alkantaschkene Bemanes Kadeshim Tahem Kazerakim Nashirim. Es Nishmas HaKadeshim Shinilchamu B'chol Marchos Yisrael and B'macheres B'tzava Haganah Yisrael B'shinaflu B'milchamtam Es Nishmas HaKadeshim Shiniltzachu B'pukuya Taror ומסרו נפשם על קדושת השם, העם בארץ, עבור שאנו מתפללים לעילוי נשמותיהם, לכן בעל הרחמים, אז תראה מסייס הכנפה בעולמים, ליצור בצורה חיימס נשמתם, אדוני נחלסם, וגני דהם נוחסם, ונוח בשלום המשכבסיהם, ושעבוי לכל ישראל זכוסם, ויעמדו לגוררם לקץ הימים, ונאמר אמן.
Amen. Shir Lamala will be sang by the Levine boys, and Yuval Hapkin and Rabbi Eli.
Mountains, where will my help come from? I will not be afraid, for Hashem is with me. A special tribute to Eli K. Psalm 121 is always a poignant prayer.
And I think Baruch may come and join us too. Shila malo Sayan Ilharim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'im Hashem Use Shamayim Ba'aretz Al Yitei Lamot Rak Lecha Yonum shorecha Hine lo yanu Lo yisham shomer Yisrael Hashem shomrecha Hashem tisilcha Aliyah yeminecha Yomam Hashem Lo yakecha Hashem yishmorecha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Hashem yishmor zritcha uvayecha, ve'ata v'yad olam. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, v'yoreach balayla. Hashem yishmorecha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Hashem yishmor zritcha uvayecha, ve'ata v'yad olam. Ve'ata v'yad olam.
Eli was born on Shavuot. He came as a surprise a little bit early, and from an early age he had a insight and a fascination with certain things. As Deborah has often shown that in his primary school reports, he drew on the cover a picture of the old city with an Israeli flag and soldiers. And, it wasn't something that we discussed at home. It wasn't a part of his upbringing, but he was clearly sensitized to that. And Eddie always had this love for Israel. He's concerned that Israel doesn't have enough soldiers to look after the country.
There was no question that Eli was not going to find himself in Israel. Whether it was to live there, whether it was just to serve, doesn't matter what. It was just that was on his mind, and that was his end goal, to be in Israel, Eretz Israel, and do something there and make his life there.
Shalom. My name is Eli, originally from Johannesburg, South Africa. When I was 19 years old, I made Aliyah to Israel and drafted to the paratroopers, where I served as a squad leader and a platoon commander.
בחור שעלה מדרום אפריקה, כמה ישראלי הוא יכול להיות? זה פשוט היה מישהו, הוא פשוט היה ישראלי. פשוט נולד במדינה אחרת, אבל הוא היה ישראלי מהרגע שהוא נולד.
You never found Eli in his off time sitting, very rarely, just reading a book or doing nothing. Every Friday was a tiyul. Shabbat, he was away somewhere. It was always another Mayan. There was always something in this country that he was passionate about.
I remember clearly when Eli was offered to go on Makim, on Krus Makim, and he told us this is what it's all about. This was all new to us. And I said to him, why do you want to do this? It's a great honor, but why? He said, because I want to make sure that the challenges that I had as a soldier, I'm able to alleviate over the other soldiers coming in.
ב-9 בבוקר הגיע פאדי אבו שחדם, חמוש בתת מקלה הקר לו ובסכין מטבח לשער השלשלת בכניסה להר הבית. הוא שלף את הרובה מתחת לגלימה ופתח באש לעבר אליהו קיי.
הפיגוע ירי בעיר כיכר רחוב שלשלת. אני חייב להריץ בעדה אישית של פצוע מירי. יש פצוע ירי מחברים לנו פה.
We underestimated Eli as a teenager and what he was up to. I can honestly say that we have learned more about him in his death and the kindness that he has done and the messages from people who he touched in his life than we really appreciated in his life.
פשוט היה לו כל כך הרבה, כל כך אכפת מכל אדם שהיה חלק מהחיים שלו, והיה, אפילו אם הנגיעה שלו הייתה קטנה. כשהוא ישב איתך, היית מרגיש שהוא איתך. כאילו לא, שוב פעם, אין בולשיט. אני פה, אתה פה, אנחנו ביחד. קשר עין תמיד, מדבר איתך מהלב.
I want to show you something. Two Sherut Lomi young ladies who, on hearing the news about Eli's death, needed to do something. And they held up this piece of paper with these words on and with this picture of Eli. And within a very short time, they had both sides of this with messages of love to the family, to Eli.
And this is the emotion that people came out with. And that reflects who the Jewish people are.
אם זה נגמר, אז לפחות פה עם חבר טוב.
כן,
עובדים באדמת ארץ ישראל, וזהו, תמשיכו לחיות את החיים שלכם.
תמשיכו, תשמחו בשבילנו, אל תבכו בהלוויות שלנו. תשמחו, תחיו את החיים שלנו.
תעשו גגים.
כן, כן.
ביי.
The messages at the time of the Shiva, one in particular I got from an ex-student of mine. And she said to me, I had the pleasure of meeting Eli not long ago. He helped me carry some packages up to my apartment. And I thought, that's our boy. That's our boy. What a mensch. That was Eli.
אני לא מסוגל לחשוב על משהו אחד שאני לוקח איתי, כי זה מישהו היה, איכשהו גרם לי להיות יותר טוב, איכשהו גרם לי להרגיש לגבי עצמי ולגבי העולם.
Of my life since I was 10 years old. I hold many fond memories of playing in the former shul building and reenacting all parts of the shul service with my brothers when we had free reign of the building on Shabbat afternoon. I have many fond memories of congregants who became good friends and who loved us like family. There are many unfamiliar faces here tonight, and I have been gone from this community for many years. But we know that this community holds us close, not only because of their relationship with my parents and brother and sister-in-law and family, but simply because we are Ish Echad Belev Echad, one people with one heart. We are all Jews who feel the pain at the loss of another Jew. Never would I have imagined myself standing here as a speaker at the Tekes ceremony commemorating Yom Hazikaron. Never did I imagine myself being the mother of a child who was murdered in a terrorist attack simply for being a Jew. In the Tekes, the swearing-in ceremony that a soldier goes through after 7 weeks of being in the army, they swear in their allegiance to the army, and they receive 2 items at that time. One of which is a Tanakh, a book that contains the written words of the Torah, and the other is their gun. The symbolism of these 2 items holds great significance. The Tanakh represents the Torah that God gave to Moses and the very foundations of the Jewish text that is our basis and identity that the land of Israel is ours. And the other is the gun, sending out a clear message to the world that we will fight and we will protect this country because, as a Jew, it is ours, and we will do anything to ensure that it remains that way. At the Tekes, the soldiers have to say some words. One paragraph from the Tekes is as follows. I swear and commit to maintain allegiance to the State of Israel, its laws and its authorities, to accept upon myself unconditionally the discipline of the Israel Defense Forces, to obey all the orders and instructions given by authorized commanders, and to devote all my energies and even sacrifice my life for the protection of the homeland and the liberty of Israel. Last Shabbat, I was taking a walk with my youngest son, Hanan, who is currently serving in the army. And we were re-talking about some of the events that took place at the time that Eli was killed. And this idea of swearing allegiance to the country. And I said to him, I get it. When you are in the Israeli army and you swear to take this on, I understand that this is what you are choosing. But what about afterwards? This is not a lifelong sign-up. And he said to me, no, Ma, you are wrong. Each one of us, the 3 of us, who signed up to take on this oath, signed up for it for life. This is not something that was merely signed up for our army service. He said, and when we stood there, each one of us, and said this, we said it with our full heart and a full belief in what we were saying. On the one hand, I can go the route of being a martyr. My son died for this country of Eretz Israel that we have been fighting for thousands of years. But on the other hand, I am a mother. As a mother, I am mourning. As a mother, I am pained. But as a mother, I am so proud. I know that I'm standing with thousands of mothers today, many of whom are joined together simply for their child being a korban, being a sacrifice to their country. I also know that I am not a victim. The victim of terror status is something that we get automatically in such an instance. It's a new badge that is worn. You are now part of a club with exclusive membership. I remember sitting there during Shiva when numerous people came in to see us, and they said to us, "Welcome to the club." And even in my shocked state, sitting there on the couch, I said, "No, I'm not part of any club. I've never really been a conformist in that kind of way, and they're not going to get me now." I can't change the sign-up, but I can change how I use it. I, as a mother, am making the choice to move forward with this status in a meaningful and positive way. And this really brings me to why we are actually in the UK for Yom Hazikaron. It was not by chance that we happened to be here over these days and decided to be here tonight to speak. But surely, you ask yourself, you should be in Israel. That's the place to be. It's your first Yom Hazikaron in your new status. Shouldn't you be there? I've been having some discussions with Eli about coming to South Hampstead for Yom Hazikaron, and I couldn't make a decision. I felt so pulled. On the one hand, I felt I owed it to Israel. I need to be there. I need to be there for this most meaningful day in the calendar, and we need to stand there in solidarity with the thousands of others who are in the same position. And actually, when it finally dawned on me that this was going to change was when we did the video footage for this video. Some Israelis, believe it or not, are very organized. And they got in a couple of months ago and they asked us if we could do a video for Masa, considering that all four of our children, have been on Masa programs in Israel and benefited. And we said, sure, we'll do the video. And they said to us that the video will be shown at the Masa event, and if we could please be at the event. And I said to them, what are we doing at the event? And they said, you just be there, and if you want, you can light a candle. And then came another phone call. Will we be at Har Herzl? What will we be doing there? My husband will be saying Kaddish. And then came another phone call. Can we go into a Hebrew-speaking school? And it started to work like this, over and over. Can you just sit at this function? Can you be on the panel? Can you sit up there with everybody else? And this was going on for some time until eventually we did this interview. And while we were doing this interview, which went on for quite some time, we've obviously abridged it quite a lot, the two guys who were doing the interview could not hold themselves together. In fact, when the one was asking the other if there was anything more and could he continue, he couldn't say. The one guy had tears pouring down his face, and the other guy was mute, couldn't say a word. And after that interview, I turned to Avi and I said, we're going. We're going to Chutz La'aretz for Yom Hazikaron. I cannot sit up here on a stage and light a candle. We have done the videos. They've heard us speak. We did videos this morning. We did videos yesterday. We need to be somewhere where we can speak, where we can give, where we can be involved in the next generation and be in schools, because we need to make a difference from what has happened to us. Thank God our children and our daughter-in-law have taken on all the roles for us in Israel. We did our bit before we left, and we felt pulled to come to a place to share our story about Eli and to share our story about how are we and the choices that we have made. We stand here today on Yom Hazikaron, a day of remembrance, and I ask myself, what does it mean to remember? Every day we remember Eli. What is different today to remember? And what is the difference for the nation to remember? And it came to me in an instant, and I realized that for me, remembering is not good enough alone. Remembering has to be followed by action. If we are not going to actively do something after remembering, for me, the remembering is not good enough. The K family, from almost the week after, and even during the week of Shiva, have decided to take initiatives and do things in the memory of Eli and for the fulfillment of Eli's dream. Eli, as you can see in the brief video, was passionate about Eretz Yisrael. A love that is beginning to wear off on us, and a feeling that this is the place where Jews have a future and have a life. We need to stand up and we need to make a difference. And that is the choice that we are making. Our first program, the first project that we are going to be doing and launching in the next couple of weeks is a unity Torah. Now you can say that there's been many Torahs written in the last while, and this was something that actually in the beginning I said, I don't want to do this. What's a unity Torah? Until we realized that any story has touched people around the world, and that people want to do something and want to be involved in something. But more than that, this Torah is going to be a traveling Torah. This Torah is going to be put into a backpack and is going to be used for tour groups, for youth, for adults, when they go on their tiyolim through the land of Israel, when they need to have a Sefer Torah with them, because that was Eli's dream. The passion, the love for traveling of Israel, together combined with the Torah. There are a number of other projects that we, please God, look forward to getting involved in terms of education, youth, a land project, please God, in settling and acquiring more land in Israel. And in the last 6 months, we've been working very hard on these. We look forward to sharing them on our website in the near future. But really, what I'm asking you for is that, please God, this Yom Hazikaron should empower us to move forward with an act of goodness and kindness, with a commitment, whether it is to another, whether it is to ourselves, whether it is to our family, whether it is to our spouse, whether it is to our community, to do something, to make a difference, to be active. We have made the choice to take this tragedy and use it as something positive. And I ask you, this Yom HaZikaron, don't just remember, but please do something to perpetuate Eli's memory and the memory of all the terrorists, of victims of terror and soldiers that we have lost in Israel. Thank you.
After those beautiful words, and today I've had the absolute honour of being with Devar and Avi at just a few of their speaking engagements, going to primary schools, secondary schools, interviews, and each one I've smiled and cried and sat drinking in every word. You always have been constant inspirations to us, but you continue to be so. Before we turn to Avi for a few words, Yom Hazikaron leading into Yom Ha'atzmaut, as the sun is going to begin to set shortly, is complex. There's such dissonance. Yuval will now lead us with this beautiful melody, which recognizes that our hearts are torn in two. Ultimately, we turn to God to transform our sadness into joy. Ahavat natzeach. Love will prevail. This is Halev Sheli by Yishai Ribo.
הלב שלי נקרא לשניים, מה שלא אתה שפחה על המים, כמו סופה מן הים הולם, כמו תופעה של מים פועם, ואין תרופה בעולם. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מספדי למחור, הכל, ורק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שלי, מרפא את הלב. חציו לשם שמיים, כמו סופה מן הים עולם, כמו תופעה של מרים פועם, ותרופה לעולם ללב. ורק אתה יכול להפוך מסתדי למחול, וזכך את החול, לרכך בי הכל. ורק אתה מבין איך לגשת ללב שלי, משכך כל כאב שלי, מרפא את הלב.
Maybe just to change the tone a little bit, just to spend a little bit of time painting a picture of the life of Eli in relation to Yom Hazikaron and Yom Ha'atzmaut. Last year, Devorah and I got dressed quite excitedly to go to our first ever Yom Ha'atzmaut ceremony. Yes, we had participated in them before, but they were abstract because it was about a carnival, it was about music, and there was very little religiosity, little feeling about Yom Ha'atzmaut. And here we've been invited by friends that we had made very recently to come to such an event. And there we were in our white shirts, and we went to this event. And I must say, I did feel a little bit of like a fish out of water. Wasn't quite sure what to do, what to expect. And I stood there mesmerized from the moment I arrived until the evening was over. And what was I mesmerized by? The fact that I'm standing here in Israel as an Oleh Chadash, someone who's just made Aliyah, still not comfortable with the way things operate in this new country that we've come to. And here I am standing with people that I barely know, and I'm sharing something absolutely fundamental with them. I'm standing at Yom Hazikaron as a father of 3 combat soldiers, about to be a father of a 4th daughter-in-law combat soldier. I had no idea that my daughter, who's drafting on Sunday, please God, into the army, would also be joining their ranks. I stood there thinking, this is incredible. Here I am, part of this group of people, accepted, and I've paid my dues by my children doing what their responsibility is and joining the army that they felt was incumbent upon them to do. And then the joy to go into Yom Ha'atzmaut and stand there and think, Hallel is being said. We're praising Hashem. We're thanking Him for the opportunity to stand here as a free nation, waiting for the coming of Mashiach. But right now we're standing here free, and Jews around the world are free, because Israel stands here proud and free. And then the next day, we did something that I think makes us unique amongst parents in the world. And it gave us an opportunity to feel what Yom Ha'atzmaut is about in a totally different way. Our younger son, Hanan, who's now, as Eddie said, a platoon sergeant in Nachal, was doing guard duty together with a few of his friends at a picnic spot somewhere in the Gush. And we went to visit him. And we arrived towards the end of the day, and there were these soldiers who had been protecting picnic goers, people who were enjoying Yom Ha'atzmaut. They were there, and they were just part of the celebration that was going on. And towards the end of the day, all the soldiers came back from the various positions that they were in. And one of the guys simply sat down on the ground, and I'll never forget this image. He sat there in what we call in Israel a kova tembel, a dunce hat, for lack of a better term, but with that round farmer's hat, his helmet on the back of his backpack, and he pulled out a sefer, he pulled out a book of Jewish study from his pack, and he sat there and he opened it. The covers covered in duct tape so that it's preserved and it doesn't become dog-eared, and he sat there quietly, humbly learning. And I turned to Hanan and I said, who's this guy? He says he is Atzmonai. He's one of the guys who studied with me in Yeshiva Atzmona, and that's what we were taught, that every spare moment you've got, you take out a sefer and you learn, but you do it with humility, with an understanding, the gravitas, that you're sitting in a holy land, doing a holy job, and now's your time to open up that siddur for a second, or that chumash, or that gemara, or whatever it was. And then the debate happened. Eddie called his Rav and said, I'm not quite sure if we're going to get to a minyan together for Mincha Ma'ariv, because the guys are all spread all over. And his Rav stopped him right there and said, better to daven alone in madim, better to daven alone in army uniform, than to daven in a minyan without madim. Implying that the job you're doing is holy. The job that you're doing is a great merit, and Hashem sees it as that. Daven wherever you are. You are wearing madim. You are wearing the uniform that 3 generations ago was grey and white stripes. That is now the olive color of the proud Sahal army. And that's the message for me, from Yom Hazikaron into Yom Ha'atzmaut. And when did it become most potent for me? Is every time I walk into Hanan's room, because there on his bookshelf, he has a whole collection, maybe 5 or 6 different stones, different rocks, about this size, each one with a date. Let me tell you the story of the rocks. In the army, part of your graduation is a masa, a march. You start off with 8 kilometers, and then you start off with a little bit longer, with a stretcher, and so it goes until you get to the magic 40 or 45 kilometer number. And at your beret ceremony, which is your second ceremony, at the end of your training, your basic training, you do a masa. Eli's masa started outside Yerushalayim, and he walked into Yerushalayim. And there's a beautiful picture of him and Naama, our daughter, walking into Givat HaTachmoshet, that place that was so important that we captured in 1967 in order to call Yerushalayim our own. Brother and sister walking hand in hand, joined by the Israeli flag, the symbol of unity of Am Yisrael. And what would Eddie do in the Masa, in that one, and in all the previous ones? Those of you who have ever done some sort of strenuous exercise, you know you get to the point of mind over matter. And then you get to the point of, as we say, those of you who speak Afrikaans, just vasbyt, which means just continue, just suck it up and go on. At that point, Eddie would bend down and he would pick up a rock and he would hold it. Why? Because it's the ground that he was fighting for. It's the very thing that was holding him back, that gave him the impetus to go on. And he held it close. And he carried that rock to say, this very thing that is paining me at the moment is the thing that I'm fighting for. And then his mother explained the thing that he was prepared to die for. And now they sit proudly on his brother's shelf as a symbol of resilience and a symbol as to what we're here for. As Kasriel, our oldest son, said at the cemetery, where we saw an outpouring of solidarity and love and brotherhood that is indescribable. He said there, the only way that Eddie would go is or b'milchama or b'pikua, either in war or in a terrorist attack. That was Eddie. That's what he wanted to do. And what I want to share with you today is that that's what we need to take for Yom Hazikaron, and we need to take it into Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's the story of the Jewish history. When the Jews left Egypt, they took the bones of Yosef with them, the viceroy of Egypt, the symbol of power. And when he died, we became slaves. And thereafter, we became a free nation forevermore. We never had a slave mentality thereafter. When Moshe Rabbeinu went up into Har Sinai, he came down and he broke the luchot. And in the ark contained both sets of luchot, the broken and the new. We take our past with us. We take Yom HaZikaron into Yom Ha'atzmaut. Eli fought really, really hard to wear the red boots of a tzamchan, to wear the wings of a tzamchan. And I'm painfully reminded every time I look at my daughter that she wears the silver wings of a tzamchan on her chest in the beautiful necklace that she had made by a friend, together with the blue stone of the color of Eli's eyes. And every time I go down to our basement to get something, there's a bag with Eli's army boots sticking out. And they remind me how hard he fought to have the honor to wear those boots. And the chief rabbi of the IDF said to Eli and all his comrades when they stood at the kotel, he said, remember whose footsteps you are standing in. Remember whose boots you are wearing. Remember the sacrifices that were made. And here I stand as a father, as parents, so proud that we are part of the legacy of Am Yisrael. And as sad as it is, and as heartbreaking as it is, I can only echo my wife's words that we choose what we do with this tragedy. And I ask everybody to take the tragedy that you have in your life, that you've shared with us, because I know everyone in this room, everybody of this special community shared the tragedy with us and with our in-laws, divorced parents and brother-in-laws, and take it into Yom Ha'atzmaut. Take this flag, which we have now lowered, and in your mind say, this flag will never be lowered again. Outside our home during Shiva flew the flag of Israel for one simple reason. Eli died for Am Yisrael. Eli represented the Jews, and the Jews showed it to us by the thousands and thousands of people who came to our home to share in our grief and to give us chizuk. That flag is the symbol that unites us. When you look at that flag, one needs to remember the people that gave their lives, that we can look at it and hold it proudly. But we are going to hoist it back up to its correct position just now. And we know that that's the place it will stay. Because Am Yisrael Chai, because people care and people have given their lives. And we need to honor them by, in the next 24 hours, being besimcha ad bli dai. Thank you.
Tadaraba. That sounds much more full. We love you and we're with you all the way. Well, thank you so much, Yuval Havkin. And also welcome to Chazan Yudi Cohen, who's just standing here listening to how we sing. He's coming back in a couple of weeks to sing with us for Shabbat UK. Yudi and Dina are here this evening, friends of Devorah and Avi from South Africa. They've now relocated to London, so we look forward to seeing you back here at the Bimmer. In fact, the Bimmer should be back here as well, Yudi, when you turn up. Oseh Shalom, please everyone, sing together in the trademark South Hampstead way. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom Shalom aleinu le'al kol Yisrael. From the top one more time.
Amen. For the fourth time. Oseh Shalom b'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru
Devorah and Avi's words, the energy of community and the prayer for peace into the night and into the year. Am Yisrael Chai, Oseh Shalom b'mromav. May there be peace for us, for Jews, for Am Yisrael everywhere, and for all humanity. Amen.